evening and welcome to the December edition of The Edge. As always, I'm your host, Trevor Lewington. Thanks so much for joining me. Every third Thursday, we're talking to community and business leaders here in Southern Alberta that are having a real impact. My guests, as always, are sharing their insights to help you build your community, build your business, and hopefully build your life. We don't care whether you got here through Roku TV, Fire TV, Apple TV, YouTube, the website. Look, we're just really glad you could join us this evening. And tonight, I'm excited to have Lethbridge's Chief of Police, Shahin Mehdizadeh, is here this evening. Welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, look, I'm looking forward to the discussion. There's lots of great things happening in the policing world. Perhaps we can start. I know you had about a 3-decade-plus career with the RCMP. I'm curious what you did before you came to Lethbridge. Can you talk a little bit about that career?
First of all, thank you for the invite and pleasure to be here tonight. So my policing career started in 1989 when I had just, I got my citizenship in 1988 and I knew I was going to be a police officer. So
that was always the goal. That
was the goal.
Okay.
So I applied for as many police services as I could because back then becoming a police officer was not as easy as today. And my goal was to go to any organization that was going to take a chance and hire me. And RCMP was that organization that offered me a job in 1989. And after recruit training and some French language training, I ended up in Banff, Alberta. That was my first posting.
So let me get this straight. First RCMP posting is Banff.
First RCMP posting was Banff.
I feel like that's one of the crown jewels of the posting opportunities.
But it was great. Yeah, I can't complain. In fact, I didn't even know I'm coming to Alberta because they had told me when I was going through recruit training, when we did the staffing interviews, they said 90% chance I'm going to BC and 10% I'm going to Ontario. And in fact, I had applied to Alberta as one of my choices. They said, forget about Alberta. So I came to Alberta, the Banff detachment, and that was an amazing experience where I learned the basics of police work and also started learning so much more about the importance of community engagement. Met my wife, Christine, there in Banff, and
nice.
And we married at the Banff Springs Hotel. So Banff has a very special place in our lives.
No doubt.
And 31 years later, we're still together and working towards even more things in life. So from Banff, I managed to get my next posting was Calgary Drug Section, which was basically we did national drug investigations, and from there, when my wife decided to become an RCMP officer herself, when she went through training, they transferred both of us to Fort McMurray detachment. So I worked serious crimes and drug investigations in Fort McMurray, and after that, my skills were needed to go to the full-time undercover unit in BC, and that's where we made our transition to British Columbia. So I did that job for a while until my daughter was born, and the best job in the world became the worst job because I couldn't do my main job being a dad.
Right.
So at that time I took a promotion to a corporal, went to Regina Training Academy and taught applied police sciences, and managed to become a dad and actually get some stability in my life. From there, I went to as a sergeant to Kukuldam detachment, overseeing drugs, organized crime, and robbery units.
Okay.
And then I took a promotion as a staff sergeant to organized crime, CFSU, which is Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit in British Columbia. After that, I took a short stint acting inspector in the motorcycle gang unit of British Columbia, working on outlaw motorcycle gangs, and then went as a commissioned officer to Burnaby detachment, in charge of all the plainclothes units in Burnaby. And then calling came for me to go to Manitoba as a district officer and superintendent. So that's where the family moved to. And then after that, I came back to Alberta, where it all started for me. as a district officer, as a chief superintendent in the east side of the province, and then later on to the central part, looking after the district in both areas. And then after just over 31 years, this opportunity came for me to become the chief in Lethbridge, and I've been here for just over 4 years now.
Yeah. That's great. So obviously a very extensive career in a broad range of areas of policing. It can sometimes be a challenge to attract talent, particularly executive leadership talent, to a smaller community like Lethbridge. So what was it about our community and the opportunity that attracted you here for that job?
First and most important thing, like when I was in the RCMP, I was in the green zone to get my next promotion, but that would have meant a physical transfer for me, most likely, to the assistant commissioner level. Okay. And at that time, my daughter was in university at the University of Alberta in Edmonton. I knew she's not coming. And we've also, again, Alberta is where I started cutting my teeth as a police officer, and starting my life with my wife, and actually from that, when this job was posted, I thought, why not? At that time we were ready to move forward and maybe try something different. And Lethbridge is still close enough to Edmonton that we can still be close to our daughter and still stay in Alberta. So the decision was made. I applied for it, not knowing that I'm going to get the job, but here I am, and 4.5 years later, very proud to call this place home and be a citizen here.
Is there anything about Lethbridge that surprised you when you came here, either positively or negatively?
Well, I came here during the COVID year in 2020. So, but immediately what I liked about Lethbridge immediately was when I was going through the process. There are a lot of processes that people may talk about. Sometimes the process, the writing is on the wall who they want, but in this case, I felt that the commission, at the time, they were giving opportunity they just wanted the candidate they wanted and whoever was most suitable for the job. So I kind of felt very welcome as soon as I came here. And from there, just engaging with the community members and looking at how supportive this community is towards the police certainly made it a very easy transition. But both Christine and I, and even our daughter, we are very used to moving. And when we moved from A to B, we've had many moves, lived in many provinces. Right. So where we settle, it becomes home for us, and we just move forward. But I like the weather in Lethbridge. People complain about the wind, but I look at wind as warm weather coming in during cold winter months. And when you've lived in Winnipeg, Regina, Edmonton, Fort McMurray, you actually don't mind the wind as much as long as it's warm.
Right. Yeah, it's always nicer than the minus 40 sticking around for months.
That's correct.
Yeah. So as you think across that career, is there a project or a thing you look back on that you're most proud of? It's like, that was a key milestone in my career trajectory.
It's a difficult question to answer because, be honest with you, every day that I can get out there and serve the community, regardless of where I live, and I'm tasked to provide service, is a highlight for me. Okay. So every day of my policing has been a highlight in my career. Of course, there's been investigations that have been very eye-opening for me, and even difficult to even think about. I remember helping Kingston Police on the quadruple homicide case. They had the honor killing Shafia, so I was quite involved in that case, and very happy to be able to help that department at the time to bring actually closer to that investigation, all the way through the court process to actually hold the people responsible accountable for it. And I've done a lot of work on in relation to past that, actually after that, promoting especially our immigrant women rights and freedom, and when they come to this country, and how we can better serve them and make quality of life better for them. And also, I've been involved in many drugs, organized crime files, national security. Again, there are too many to mention, but at the end, it's all about every day I can have the honor to put my uniform on, go and serve the public. It's a great day and another highlight of my career.
And I would imagine gratifying to know that you've had a hand with your colleagues of taking drugs off the road or putting someone behind bar, like actually having an impact on the community that you serve.
You're right. As an undercover operator, I've worked street-level drug files in downtown Vancouver to very high-level drug files, multi-kilo level with the Asian gangs and motorcycle gangs, Mexican cartel. But again, doesn't matter what level you're working at. Every time you're actually taking drugs off the street and taking someone who's distributing them at whatever level off for a while, it's always rewarding to do that. And in the undercover capacity, especially when I was in full-time unit, a lot of our work was on historic homicide cases. A lot of them are being missing person or a homicide that happened, that there's a target, but there's not enough to prove.
Right.
So you engage in the covert capacity to build trust and actually get the truth from these individuals. And some of the highlights of those files were when there's a missing person, but you actually get the evidence and get the location of the body through the person who committed the offense. And actually, even though it's sad news for the families, but you were able to give closure to the family members.
They can at least close that chapter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those are rewarding experiences that you can actually bring some closure to some families, and so they're not looking at the doorbell ringing every day looking for the loved one. So sad stories, but also the reality is we were able to close that chapter for them and they can move on with their life.
Yeah, no, I can't even imagine some of the work that you've done and the things that you've seen. And it's interesting, we were talking earlier that you've got to go home and polish your boots because you've got to welcome some new graduates. I think it's tomorrow.
Yes.
So, what advice would you have to aspiring students who are exploring a policing career? I mean, they listen to the kind of the work that's done and make those trade-offs, but is there something that was really foundational for your early career or something that really helped move you along?
Well, the policing is a type of career that needs for people to actually see it as a calling, not just a job.
Okay.
It's a most rewarding job someone can do, but it's also very challenging. So noble yet very challenging, and you always have to. The only advice I give people is take pride in what they do, because as police officers, we're making a difference every day. And we respond, like even in Lethbridge, you look at Lethbridge, we have over 40,000 calls for service and many more contacts with the community and interactions, probably millions of interactions with people. Very positive, and at the end of the day, the majority of the community has a huge level of support for the police service and the officers, not only in this community, but right across Canada. But there's always that negative element that they're always there to pick on police, and one wrong move or decision by somebody who may be bad day or just not ethical decision that they made, they try to only pick on that. And those news, it gets out viral. You never see the good news getting out like that, but bad news gets out quickly.
Right.
And that puts a lot of more pressure on, especially our young people who are coming into this world with they just want to serve the community, but sometimes they may feel that the community is not respecting them. But they have to be reminded always that it's not the community, it's a very few people in the community. Majority of the public, they have full respect for them. And what I want to always tell them, remind them, is not just our police officer, but every employee at our service to take pride in what they do, because we are making a difference every day, and at the end we have to take pride and ownership of that pride, and then continue to serve the community.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to remember there are a number of other support staff and other players that are a part of your team. It's not just the officers we see on the street.
Obviously, what people see is always the police officers on the front line with their uniform and everything, but the support cast, our civilian employees, I tell you, the work they do is equally important in promoting public safety. So I regard our public service or civilian employees as the pillars or the platform that police officers need to do their work. And the stronger that platform is, the better they can do their job. So I always have to remind them that even though they don't put handcuffs on people and arrest people, what they do is actually promoting public safety, because without their help, our officers can't do their job. So they're critical in our operation.
Yeah, an arrest is one thing, but without the forensics to back it up and get you through the court process, it doesn't really matter, I guess.
And even the people who do the data entry, the people who do the analytical work, our finance department, who has to keep us honest with the money that we have, and not honest really, but just tell us, okay, are we spending too much where we need to cut? Those are all critical pieces. Our IT unit, even we have many volunteers. You look at our victim services, the time that they give to people when people are at their worst, actually. The watch volunteers that we have they get out there, they're getting out there, sunshine, rain, snow, -40, out there to serve the downtown sector. Like every employee, to even our custodial staff, and every employee has such a critical role to play for the big machine to go. And everybody's a component of that engine, that for the engine to run smooth, they all need to work together. So
no, thanks for that. I mean, taking pride in your work and making sure that it's something that you're going to be passionate about, I think is great career advice, no matter what path you're choosing. Was there someone that was a key mentor to you in your career? Is there someone that, or perhaps multiple people, that have helped shape your path?
I have to say, there are several people, obviously, when you look at the organization perspective. But my true hero in life has always been my mother. Okay. She's a person who has given me, the support, the love, and always going back, my dad died when I was only 14. So as the oldest son, I had to basically become an adult.
Up, right?
And this is when we had left Iran, lived in India, and then no dad in a country that's not yours, and we were hoping to come to Canada. So, but my mother, she was still young at the time. My dad was only 45 years old, and she's much younger. But she devoted her whole life to her kids. And whatever she's done to this day is to serve her kids and help us. So she's a true hero in my life. And what she's done for me to actually give me the trusting in me, and letting me choose my career path, and where my heart was telling me to go, and always supporting me, I can't really thank her enough for that. Of course, when you go past that life, I've been married, as I said, for 31 years. The support that my wife has given me, I've moved her around.
A lot.
When we got married, I promised her a life of venture, and boy, she ever got that. But then when our daughter was born, she's 23 right now. That kid has lived in 4 provinces. I've moved her to many locations, and she's always moved. It's been hard on her, but she's always made it work, and with a smile. And I'm so proud of that young lady, who's actually right now a very confident young lady who's trying to make her life path and moving forward. So these are really, when you look at mentors, and it doesn't necessarily has to come through work. It has to come through the people who've supported you, and help you navigate yourself through even hard times, because that's where the trust and support comes from. And again, I always, people laugh at this, but what I've learned in leadership and managing people, and is I've learned most of that through very bad people I've worked with.
Yeah, it's always the painful lessons that stick.
I tell you, I always tell, and I tell our employees, we've all worked for bad managers. We've all known bad managers,
right.
And they give us the best leadership and life lessons in life, because how they make other people feel, you don't never want to do that, repeat that.
Right.
So, unfortunately, I've had to work with some of those individuals, but, I can't call them heroes, but in a way, they've mentored me to be better.
Yeah, reverse heroes there. I've had managers and leaders where they taught me everything I don't want to become or be like.
That's correct.
Right, yeah. Now, I mean, you talked about the undercover work that you've done, which I can only imagine the complexities and demands of that, the major investigations, drug crime. I mean, all of those things. You talked about policing being very demanding. So how does the chief help maintain balance? What do you do to take care of you and sort of protect your mental well-being?
Good question. I don't do enough to look after myself, and I know that. But I've gone through a very hard life before police life, and I often tell people I'm kind of different in that way, because some of the challenges that may be challenging for average people, for me, it's just something that I can easily navigate through, because my life was, we had a very good life in Iran. We had to leave everything, go to a life of nothing, and rebuild from there without a dad. So I have gone through hell and back in my life and my life story to be where I am today. So a lot of things that make other people uneasy or stressed out doesn't really impact me as much. But one thing I want to always do is, not everybody is me. So the biggest thing is for me to be able to support others in the service or any place I've worked, to make sure they have that support, and they know that we got their back, and doing whatever we can to help them and their families have a great life. The only hope I have as a chief is when people hit that magical number, 25-year service. I want our employees to be mentally, physically, emotionally healthy. So if they choose to go to their pension and retire, they can actually have an amazing retirement life with their families.
You can actually enjoy it and still have a life.
Exactly. So that's the only thing I want for them. I can't give that to everyone, because at the end, it's always up to the individual to take ownership of their health, and also put their hand up or take a knee when they need to. But we always want to emphasize that we are always there to support them. There's no shame in doing so, and we'll be there right to the end to make sure they have the quality of life they deserve after serving the community for so many years.
Because, I mean, I think historically there's always been this culture of police officer as tough guy, and nothing phases you, and you can watch awful things unfold. But that's, I mean, at the end of the day, members of your team are humans, and they're subject to all of those things that we're all subject to.
Yes, and the public has to also recognize that police officers are just humans,
right?
Same as them. Yes, we take people, we give them special training, we want them to serve the community, and majority of police officers, by majority I mean very strong majority, but again, there's no perfection in everything. They're there for the right reason. They're like, you're looking at people who are ready to give their life, sacrifice their life for others, for a stranger. Who does that?
Yeah, it's a pretty noble calling. Right?
Exactly. So that's the piece that sometimes is disappointing, because one wrong action, even if something happened in the United States or in Ontario, the whole policing community has to eat it. and be held accountable and responsible for it, which is really unfair. But the fact is that we have a job and a duty that actually goes above and beyond every other job, in my opinion, and we have to act like it. So, this is the, when you look at mental health, sometimes that causes that, and but again, we have in this city, anyways, in Lethbridge and many other communities I've worked, we have amazing supporting communities, members, and one thing I always often want to remind people: yes, police are human, but we are also citizens of the same community. Before we are police, we take this badge, uniform, everything off. I put my jeans and a hoodie and ball cap on. I'm a citizen. So whatever any citizen wants for this city, for their community, is the same thing I want, because I live here, my family lives here, and I care for this city as much as anybody else.
Yeah, you want exactly what your neighbors and your friends and family in this community want. You are a member of the city of Lethbridge.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And I've heard some comments about, you've only lived here for 4 years, what do you know? So, well, you don't have to live somewhere all your life to care for it. Where I live is my home,
right.
and I care as much for it as any other person. So, but again, in this city, anyways, I see a lot of support and love. I can't go to Costco without having to shake hands with 20 people at least. But I like that, because we live in a big city, but it has that small town mentality,
right,
and culture, which both of us appreciate. Christine is from a small town, Saskatchewan, farming community, and so we both of us do appreciate that. And even though I come from big cities in my previous life before I came to Canada, but since I've been in Canada, and even as a member of RCMP, I've lived in small communities, and I quite cherish them and very comfortable with them.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, right? You can't go to Costco without having to shake hands with at least 20 people, because we're, a community of 113,000 people, but still very much behave like we're a small town, and there is that camaraderie and sense of community.
That's correct. And that doesn't end in Lethbridge. I go outside of Lethbridge. I go to Tabor.
Right.
People know me in Tabor. It's that that's what we really enjoy. But I often have to, because sometimes people see I wasn't born in Canada, and I often have to remind them, yes, I lived in Iran for 12, India for 5, but in Canada 40 years in Canada. So I'm married to a small town, Saskatchewan, Ukrainian, Polish gal. I eat head cheese like anybody else. Love Ukrainian sausage. Really, that's who I am. Regardless of where you're born or spend some of your life, this is my country, and I feel proud and honored always to be a Canadian citizen.
Well, thank you for sharing a bit of your personal story. I think it's, part of this show is about helping people understand who the leaders are in our community and how they came to where they're at. And it's important to understand the backstory and what creates people. Now, you've been in the role 4 years, and you've made some very significant changes with the Lethbridge Police Service. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the strategic plan or the business plan. I know the Police Commission just presented that fairly recently. What's sort of the key priorities? What are you hoping to accomplish with LPS over the next number of years?
Well, when you look at a police service and the mandate, it's really we are here to promote public safety in whatever way we can. There are many different ways to accomplish that. There's enforcement, collaboration, assisting people when they're in and community engagement. But when you look at our strategic plan, when I came here, it was a little more complex, and I'm a simple guy because there's a reason for that. Because when you want to be strategic and make a plan that way, if you make the plan that average person can see and understand and remember, it actually does the job. Complex documents, you see them all over the place, and a lot of times actually I've questioned people who've created those documents. They don't even know what they're talking about.
Because they just go on a shelf somewhere.
Exactly. So when I came here and when we had to build our 4-year strategic plan, I wanted to simplify that, which is really focus on key areas and mandates of the police. Number one is a safe community. everybody, every citizen I talk to, they want a safe community. That's our job. That's our mandate.
Right.
So that's a big pillar, and everything we do has to actually support that. The next piece is the community engagement, which we have to build trust with our citizens, and because without their trust, really, we shouldn't exist.
Right.
So we need to, whatever we do to connect with them, engage with them, and build trust, that's critical, like everything we do. And the last piece that contributes to the first two is a healthy organization. Without a healthy employees and a good organization, we can't deliver on those two priorities. So our strategic plan is fairly easy. Have a healthy police department to actually connect with our citizens and promote public safety. So everything we do, and from a policing plan perspective, any initiative we come up with has to fit in one of those pillars.
It has to come from there.
Or feed into one of those pillars.
Okay.
So when we do youth engagement and dealing with at-risk youth, it's feeding both the community engagement piece and promoting a safer community. So whatever plan we do, initiatives we do, we always want to feed those three pillars, and that keeps the organization focused on main priorities, and then we just keep working on initiatives to feed into those. And that's become actually a norm right now. So our strategic plan, I can't even see changing for the next time we put it in. Because really, what is a police mandate? What is a police here to do?
It doesn't change a whole lot, right?
Yeah, like that's our job. The year-to-year plans to feed into those priorities changes based on the trends that are going on, based on what we are seeing and what kind of where we need to deploy our resources and put more focus on. So with that, it's actually much easier for our employees to understand that. It's much easier for the public to have a look at that, to see what we are trying to do. And if there is any question, we can always answer that. But that's really the essence of the strategic plan that we are trying to build, is keeping it simple, but also meaningful and directly impacted by the work that we do to serve the community. But I was sharing that with you earlier. One of the first things that I had to do when I came to Lethbridge is when you look at the culture change and trying to rebuild the department and moving past some of the previous challenges, had to do with even redefining who we are and what our values are.
Right.
And we had a wonderful lady that we contracted to actually work with every team, every employee, both police and civilians, to actually come up with their ideas. What is our mission? What is our calling? What sort of values we want to have, and the organization that we ought to be. So we even had to redefine all those, because at the end, if you have a team that's actually involved in those critical decisions in the way they want to see the organization move forward, it's actually become more of a team than something that's top heavy and driven. Everything is driven from the top with nothing. So this way, we've changed the whole concept of that our mission, vision, values are employee driven, not management driven, and management certainly supports that, and our employees actually buy into that more, because it's their department and their values, not the chief's.
Right, so much more grassroots up.
For sure.
Right. I mean, there's no question, like every police service probably in North America, there were some incidents in the past, and there's some reputational damage, I think, done. You feel like this culture change and this focus on values and defining who you are has really helped the organization move past all of that?
Let's be fair, this Lethbridge Police has had its challenges too, share of challenges, and but when you look at any police service and anything bad that has been happened, it's not the department, it's individuals. And if individuals make a mistake or do something really bad that's totally outside of those values, that's the time that the organization has to take measures to hold them accountable, like anybody else. But sometimes our citizens tend to forget that even that has a due process. So as a chief of police, I can't just go arbitrarily do whatever I can do to the employees. There is a legal process that I need to respect because everyone has rights. And when we go through that process and everything is process oriented, we just follow that. And that's been the change since I've been here, is even the worst behavior that we've seen, we make sure it's gone through a proper process, and then we deal with it. And we don't punish people, we just correct the behavior. The correction can come from simply don't do it again to you're fired. You're going after your job.
Removing you from the organization might be the correction required.
Exactly. But even by doing that, we still want to make sure people are respected. Their integrity is held, because I don't have the right to take people's pride and integrity away from them, but I can correct their behavior through legal, ethical means that I have to abide by. Some of our citizens, they think I can just do whatever, and
You're the chief, why can't you just make things happen?
And again, they just have to educate themselves a little bit more in the processes in this country. And no, again, one thing I take huge pride being a Canadian is all those processes that are in place to protect everyone's rights. At the end, every citizen has rights, regardless of being a police, a judge, a doctor, because there are other professions who make mistakes, and we have to hold them accountable. But everything is done through a proper legal process. And sometimes people may not agree with the decision at the end of the day. When we catch someone who's committed 5-6 sexual assaults on children and they get a very short sentence, do we agree with that? Not necessarily, but I have to respect that, because they've gone through a due process in this country, and that's the corrective measures that's been put on them, and we just have to move forward. Same thing goes on with when the police officer is actually commits acts of misconduct. So because of the change in the way I'm looking at things, and again, we're just putting everything through a proper process and make sure everybody has they get their absolute legal rights. And I think it's changed the whole scope of how we look at discipline. It's not punitive anymore, it's corrective in nature. And as a result, we've been able to navigate through a lot of previous, like some of them outdated, they're dating back 8 years ago, but we're just finishing them off. And that's been a huge way forward for the department to take some of those clouds off the department and have our employees, like in the last 4 years, we've hired almost 60 new police officers.
Wow, 60 is a big influx of new ideas and new energy, I would imagine.
So these younger employees, they deserve to have a environment that they can thrive on, and they don't have to worry about the clouds or shadows that were 8 years ago.
Right.
So I always encourage them, just keep doing what you're doing, keep doing what you're sworn to do, serve the community, and we are there to have your back. If you screw up, we deal with you, we hold you accountable, but that's very far and few in between. Very proud of all the employees, civilian and police, and how they've actually reacted to how we've moved forward as a team. Again, when I came here as a chief, we had a very different environment, but it's not just up to the one person to come and change things.
Right.
Really, what am I going to do? And when I talked to the employees, when I came here first, I said it's going to be a team effort. Every employee has to work on moving forward and pushing this department to new heights. And I'm just so proud of everyone who's really taken that and advice, and every day they're doing more and more. So today our department is, when you look at our internally, we are much more satisfied. Employee satisfaction is much higher. The morale is much better, and it shows through the performance that we have on the street. In the last 4 years, we've made significant dent in reducing crime. Doesn't come by chance, If it was one-time deal, then say, I just got lucky.
But year over year, we've seen a consistent drop in the number of
crimes, and in 2024, we are going to see another significant drop. I don't know what that drop is today because our systems, they're always a few months behind to get a true crime stats.
Right.
But once we are ready to share that, I know for a fact it's going to be another drop. So that's not by chance. It's a great work that employees are doing, and also the modernization of the department in a different way. We are actually doing police work. A lot more technology and use of analytics to make our employees more focused on where they need to be and who they need to focus on more,
right.
and also collaboration piece. So we are much more data driven, intel led with our approach, and we're seeing the benefits of that. So we have identified, and you read them in the news, prolific offender list, that there are criminals in this city who continue to commit crime. And people complain about the revolving door. I don't care about the revolving door. That's not something I can influence. But when they come out of the other side, there's always conditions on it. That's where the police has a big role.
I'll be standing on the other side of that revolving door waiting.
Exactly. Yeah. And our officers know those individuals. And we visit them often, frequent, because they have conditions and there's expectations for them to abide by those to keep our city safe. And our officers are actually really bought into that. And we do checks on them. If they got to be home at 10 o'clock at night, 10:15, sometimes we are knocking on the door to make sure they're at home. Because that's how we can do at least our part to provide a service to the community. And I got to be honest, I get letters from lawyers that we are harassing their clients. And respectfully, I tell them we are not harassing anyone. Our job is to make sure they abide by the condition. So when we knock on their door to make sure they're at home at 10 o'clock at night, that's not harassment. That's our duty to provide a service to the public to keep our citizens safe.
You didn't come up with a condition, you were simply there to monitor it.
That's right.
Right.
And so when I get letters from lawyers in that regard, I know our officers are doing their job because it's actually showing that they bought into the program. And you know what? What we do is actually helping those criminals, because we have clear statistics that when we are checking on them often and holding them accountable to the conditions that they have to abide, their CSI rating goes significantly lower. There's a huge drop in their criminal activity and their CSI ratings. So that's actually showing we're actually doing them a favor to keep them out of that revolving door, and hopefully they go through that less often. Because we want nothing more but to support people to get on the right path and be productive citizens. They don't need to commit crime. But if they choose to do that, we want to be there to make sure we are keeping our citizens safe, and really that's our mandate.
Right. Now, I mean, we've talked a little bit earlier about the role that citizens have, and I live in a smaller rural community outside the city, and my local RCMP are always reminding my community that the number one cause of car theft in our community is when people leave the keys in the ignition. Mm-hmm. And so, does that translate also into the city, or again, it's hard. I don't want to blame people. Like, you should have the ability to feel safe in your own home, in your own property. But do you find that there are simple things that would make a big difference, like locking a door or taking keys out of a car? Like, does that happen in Lethbridge?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Majority of the crime here actually is opportunity crime, we call it, because this is a crime that a criminal may not even be thinking of committing a crime, but as they're walking by a door, they casually check the door. Door opens all of a sudden. They're into and we got video footage of that from the homes, that they go into the car, they steal something. But if the car was locked, they just walked away, and we've seen those footages too.
They move on to the next one.
Next one, and if the next one is locked, just keep moving. So when we look at opportunity crime, unfortunately we have that, and we try to educate our citizens. I know we have a 9 o'clock, routine that we want our citizens to do. I do that myself. I have a couple of sheds in my backyard. I have very high quality locks on them. But every night before I go to bed, I have to go make sure those locks are on the shed, just in case my wife went into the shed, forgot to lock it, or even myself. We just want to make sure, because I don't want to make my house an easy target. because if I protect my property, then people are not going to take the time to do extra work to get into my shed. They're going to go somewhere else.
Right.
And if the next person does the same, they keep moving down the road and eventually out of the city, maybe. So the message to all the citizens is not about blaming anyone. It's just about what can we do in our own home. Public safety starts in our home. Even as a chief of police, I have to lock my door.
Right.
I have to take my keys out of my vehicle. And if the vehicle is stolen with my keys in it, that's not police's fault. That's something I've done to facilitate that crime for somebody. So we really encourage our citizens. But when I worked in the RCMP, the rural Alberta, we always did town halls, and obviously rural crime was a big hot topic. And one thing I used to do is, as we had town hall, and sometimes we would have 300-400 people coming to the town hall. I would have a few officers actually, as we are talking to the people, check their vehicles. So they would collect like 20 keys. The people have left it in their vehicles, but no, very respectfully, we have it on the desk in front of me. And I would tell the public when it came to rural crime, and I said, well, a lot of the rural crime is actually can be avoided. For example, tonight 20 of you left your keys in your vehicle, and somebody could have come and stolen your car. But our officers were kind enough to go and check every vehicle, and all those keys are here. So if you're one of those people, come and take your key, knowing your vehicle, your truck is going to be there when you go out. But I don't have the ability to do this every night with every home throughout the district or in the city.
Right.
So at some point, we just want to, in a positive way, educate people to what they can do to reduce crime. And if we make Lethbridge a hard target for criminals, they're just going to go somewhere else or not do crime here. It's all about that. Police still has a critical role to investigate, to hold people accountable through charging and sending them to courts, absolutely, and we are proud to do that. But we also want to make sure we partner with our citizens as to what they can do to make us a hard target.
Right. Thank you for that. You talked a little earlier about the culture change you've done inside the organization. You talked about community engagement. I know that you were given a Blackfoot name, and you certainly have worked hard with the Indigenous community. What do you see as the police department's role, or police services role, in reconciliation? To me, it's a similar kind of challenge that you've taken internally on.
With police service or anyone with our Indigenous community, first thing we do is ask them. We have some amazing Blackfoot and Métis elders as part of our Indigenous Advisory Committee that we have amazing relationship with, and we look up to them to guide us.
Right.
What can we do more? What is some of the things that are lacking? How we can actually build trust with our Indigenous communities. We've had a dark past in this country, and we get that. It's not something that we can solve overnight. But what can we do to slowly get there? And our elders have nothing shy of amazing to actually give us ideas. And if we come up with any ideas, first thing we do is run it by them, just to make sure it's culturally appropriate.
Right.
And something that the community is responsive to the community needs, our Indigenous community. So the Blackfoot name, like one of the first thing is, if they're honoring you with a Blackfoot name, I'm going to proudly wear it on my uniform, have it in my business card, because that's an absolute honor for me. And any officer who actually gets that honor, and we've even had actually recently civilian employees who've received Blackfoot names.
That's awesome.
So that's the power of what we are trying to do. We have an amazing young lady who came to us 3 years ago as a summer student, and every summer we keep bringing her back. But she goes to school, and I'm hoping to hire her eventually after she's done school. Just an amazing young lady, confident, and absolute credit to the Blackfoot community. So she came up with an idea when we did our mission, vision, and values. She said, well, Blackfoot have values. And she wanted to start on a path to take our department values and have Blackfoot elders translate them into the Blackfoot values. So actually they blend. So what an amazing idea.
Amazing idea.
So we got her to just go do that. And she came up with these, and not only she did that with our elders, so actually you see in our community van that drives around, you see both our values and their translation in Blackfoot beside it. And we had a contest for another young lady, Blackfoot artist, to actually incorporate these, and then really our relationship with our Blackfoot and Indigenous people. And she came up with a design that you walk into our office, we proudly display that right above your head. We're very proud of that. And she can explain it a lot better than me, so I'm not even going to attempt what she did.
Next month, yeah.
But again, it just talks about respect, and it's a when you look at the design or picture, it's a pipe ceremony, and pipe ceremony is a sign of peace.
Right.
And a police officer on one side, and a Blackfoot chief on the other side, doing a pipe ceremony, which is a sign of peace. And again, everything in that design has a meaning. And we're very so proud of that. And it took two young ladies to come up with this amazing idea that now we got these logos all over our office, even on our some of our community vehicles, proudly displaying them. We just had a new TP, and our TP was getting very old, and so we had again our elders to bless our new TP to actually proudly display that, put a beautiful design on it, and have it in different ceremonies, and we have that. With our Indigenous advisory group too, we always try to engage with any community initiative that we can take part in between Blackfoot and even Métis community, to actually give them that. But the beautiful thing here is we have both Blackfoot and Métis elders on that committee, and the interaction, discussion, and what goes on, the stories that are told are just, we sit back and we just let the elders talk and listen to them, because it's a beautiful thing how you can bring such a vast knowledge of storytelling and wisdom. And these are the people who are helping us to do more for our Indigenous community. We still have a long road ahead of us. The reconciliation is not something that we just talk about and we end. But in the near future, which will be when we are ready, we're going to showcase it to the community. We are even going as far as growing our own Indigenous medicine, being sage or grass. So when we actually gift it to our elders, we're actually going to be doing that ourselves. Again, whatever we can do to bring the some of those customs and respect for that for the culture into our operations and how we do things.
That's very powerful. So I can't believe our hour is almost up. I'm wondering if you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience, whether it be around the police service, sort of the future, or even just generally your comments on crime prevention and how we harden Lethbridge.
Well, we've talked enough about that, but one thing I really want to highlight with our citizens, they're just amazing. This is one of the most generous communities I've ever been in. Anything we do to raise money for being Special Olympics or Christmas charity check stop or whatever, we always have the whole community coming to support it and support us in that. So I can't really thank the citizens enough for that. The support they have for our members, amazing. And that really drives a lot of enthusiasm with our employees when they see a community that supports and loves them.
That's got to make you feel good to be proud that there is that appreciation and buy-in.
Absolutely, and you hear that from the employees, but I also hear that from our citizens, how much they appreciate the department, and I truly appreciate that. But at the end, the only thing I want to say is, we have issues in the city, drugs, opioid crisis, and we are very much responsive to them. We are doing our best to navigate through some of these challenges that not only are in our community, but every city in this country or every community, unfortunately. But I think we've come a long way. We are on the right path as far as the trending of the crime in the city, thanks to the good work of our employees, but also the support that the community is giving us by doing those little things they can do to make us a harder target. And they are doing that, and we see that every day. But all I can say is, we are very proud to be serving this community. Every employee takes pride in that, and if they don't, I remind them every day that we need to take pride in that. And I can't thank our citizens enough for their love, support, and we continue to look at different ways to make this community safer every day. There's always better ways we can do things, and we're always ready to explore them. We've modernized this department over the last few years, which has been really good in actually building more intelligence and capabilities through intel policing. And lastly, I want to actually wish everyone a Merry Christmas. It's a time of year that we need to be there with our loved ones, just to thank everything, God, for everything that we have. And I want our citizens knowing that we have many employees who will be working during that time to keep them safe, and we want nothing more but for them to have a healthy and safe Christmas season, and moving forward into 2025, where we can repeat the cycle and keep going.
Awesome. Well, thank you and your team for your service. The police are a really critical part of our community and are doing some great work. And I appreciate you coming here and answering all of my crazy questions and speaking more about it.
Well, thank you very much.
So that's it for tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. My guest this evening, Lethbridge's Chief of Police, Shahin Mehdizadeh. We appreciate him for being a part of our show and giving us a little more insight behind the badge. And we'll see you next month as we talk to community and business leaders making a real difference here in Southern Alberta. Thanks for watching.